Okay. So let's start with kind of a couple of reminders. Chapter quizzes on Canvas. I don't know if anybody here hasn't been doing them, but I know I do have students who are coming to class and not doing the quizzes. So you got to do the quizzes. First, because this is going to be incentive. Secondly, that's absolutely going to help you learn. All right. It's going to help you learn the material and study for the exam. So I advise you to do it once before we cover the material, once before it's due at the end of the week, and once before the corresponding midterm or exam. Talking about midterms, I would like to move the first midterm. I have it scheduled to next week on Wednesday. I would rather actually move it online so I can lecture and we can do more interesting things than be watching you guys in the test and class. Does anybody have a problem? If we do it online, I'll just have it open all day Wednesday and Thursday, and you can do it anytime during that time. That be okay with that? Okay. You're still going to have a time limit, so once you start, you need to finish it. I think it's more productive if you do everything in class. You know, don't cheat. You're not going to be able to do it very effectively anyway, because basically you just get a random sample. There are hundreds of questions per chapter, and each person is going to get different ones. Okay, a reminder, they're the same ones that you are getting on your quizzes. That's another reason you get the chapter quizzes, because they're going to be the same test bank. There might be a few that I've added from my lectures, so basically the most from a test bank. So if you've done the chapter quiz on Canvas 3 times, you'll have a really good idea of what it's going to look like. Any questions there? Okay, let me just have a brief pause to take attendance. I think who just came in here? And I also have here. We have Chelsea zooming in. Let me go back here. Okay, so back to our scheduled production. So the topic of this week is consciousness. Okay, that is our first person subjective view of the world. Okay, what our awareness of who we are and what's going on. But I'm not going to define it for you, and we're going to start with consciousness. But before I give you a textbook definition, we're going to have a discussion. So I want you guys to get up and form 3 groups. The 3 or 4 people on each. Consider these questions. What does it mean to be conscious? So define it. If ever on definition you guys agree in your little group. And what are other people conscious? What is that human? Okay, is it also dog, cat, lizard, bat? Let's see. They do Avatar. Avatar, the whole darn planet conscious, right? So help amongst yourselves decide where you draw the line and what differences are there between what you say human is conscious and wherever it is you draw the line and more. See where maybe you don't see. Okay? All right, go ahead and get up. Once you do, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. And make sure you decide on someone to report back and say what you decided. Pause the recording. So my purpose in having you talk about it is to help you realize how difficult it is. Right? It is difficult to define, and we don't know exactly. Your textbook defines it as a person's awareness of everything that is going on around him or her at any given time. And then your textbook goes on to say, generated by a set of active potentials and communication among neurons. Is that all there is to it? Right? That seems really simple. So let's look at this here. Of course, in this classroom, it doesn't work so well. Let's see if this works today. Okay. For some reason, this is the only classroom where I can't just bounce, just run a film out of my PowerPoint. But that's okay. We'll just do it here. Oh, who came in? Somebody came in? Who came in? I got you. Oh, okay. I thought someone came in. All right, so.
From of consciousness is the problem of how physical processes in the brain give rise to the subjective experience of the mind and of the world. If you look at the brain from the outside, you see this extraordinary machine, an organ consisting of 84 billion neurons that fire and synchrony with each other. When I see visual inputs come, my eyes, photons hit my eyes, it sends a signal that goes up the optic nerve to the back of my brain, it sends neural firings propagating throughout my brain, and eventually I might produce an action. From the outside, though, I look like a complicated mechanism, a robot. This is how science might describe me from the objective point of view. But there's also a subjective point of view. There's what it feels like for the agent who is seeing the scene. When I see you, I see colors, I see shapes, I have an experience from a first person point of view. There's something it's like to be here. This is the conscious experience of seeing. It's part of the inner movie of the mind. This inner movie has many, many dimensions. It has the dimension of vision, it has the dimension of sound, like a normal movie, but it also has touch and taste and smell. It has emotions, it has thought, it has a sense of one's body. All of this is subjective experience. And one of the most familiar facts in the world that we have this subjective experience. But it's also one of the most mysterious. Why is it that these physical processes in the brain should produce subjective experience? Why doesn't it go on in the dark without any consciousness at all? No one right now knows the answer to this question. So in the science and philosophy of consciousness, people use the word consciousness for many different things. Some of the things are easier to explain than other things. So sometimes I like to distinguish between the easy problem of consciousness and the hard problem. The easy problems are really so easy, they're as difficult as most problems in science, but it's the hard problem that's really the mystery. So sometimes we use consciousness just for the difference between being awake and being asleep. And we say, well, how is it that a system could be awake on its feet and responding? Maybe for this, we can have an explanation in terms of the right neural mechanism in the head that produces this behavior. Eventually, we'll explain this, one of the easy problems. How is it that the perceptual system can discriminate from information and respond to it? How is it the brain can monitor itself? Again, in principle, that's a question about objective processing. An explanation in terms of neurons in the brain could explain it. So for all of these, we have accepted paradigms in science, come up with some mechanism in terms of neurons that produce this behavior, then we solve the problem. So those are easy problems. The hard problem, by contrast, is the problem of how it is that all these processes give rise to subjective experience. What's distinctive about this? It doesn't seem to be a problem about objective mechanisms, about, for example, behavior that the brain produces. We can tell a complete story about the objective mechanisms in the brain, the neurons that fire, the behaviors they produce, and so on, explaining all these functions, awakeness, responsiveness, discrimination, monitoring. And there might still be a further question. Why is all that associated with subjective experience? It's just a different kind of question. Ultimately, it's a question for science, but it's a question which right now our scientific methods don't have a very good handle on. So at least for now, it's a central question for philosophy. Now, philosophy has a great history of.
Okay, we're going to stop there because this is not a philosophy course, even though I love philosophy. It is very complex. What is it? You know, he's talking about the part of consciousness that philosophers call philia. So that really personal thing that blue looks wonderful to me, and blue looks, we're talking about the same thing as blue looks. I don't know how you experience blue, and you don't know how I experience blue. It's that part that is totally individual cannot really measure the mental part. We still can't measure that. So you are, right, okay, then let me just, while you're here. Okay, okay. So moving on. So self-awareness, okay, again, awareness of how we go on around in the world. Oh, I'm gonna run into the same thing with this stupid, let me see if I can get it to play. It just doesn't. It's so frustrating that on this computer alone, I can't just get this to go. So let's see if I can, I remember I did this last week, I couldn't figure it out either. Let me see. Straight up. Play. Okay, fine, I'll look it up. I've got to solve the problem of this room. There it is. Okay, so
Batman came by crime, but only you can recall the Batman tells only from Little Caesars with pizza and cows over.
The monkey business solution. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the ball.
I'll have the eyes on the screen and off the computer.
The correct answer is 16 passes. If you spot the gorilla, for people who haven't seen or heard about a video like this before, about half missed the gorilla. If you knew about the gorilla, you probably saw it. But did you notice the curtain changing color for the player on the black team moving the game? Let's rewind and watch it again. Here comes the gorilla, and there goes a player, and the curtain is changing from red to gold. Looking for a gorilla, you often miss other unexpected events. And that's the monkey business solution.
Okay, so did anybody not see the gorilla here? About half my class earlier this morning did not see the gorilla. And that's typical, unless you've seen it before. Okay, moving on. The point here is we're not really conscious of everything that's happening. It really depends on our attention. But and the way that gorilla actually experiments on this is because we're so focused, they tell us how many times the players in white pass the ball. Our attention is there, and when our attention is zeroed on one thing, we don't necessarily notice everything else. In fact, we don't notice because we have a limited amount of attention to go around, right? So attention is a key part of consciousness and awareness, right? So it's just another famous philosopher. We already saw David Chalmers, another one working on consciousness for a long time was Daniel Dennett. You can also watch this YouTube video of Sam Harris, another person who talks about consciousness. My point is, we don't know exactly what's going on. We don't know how the physical part of the brain gives rise to the mental part of consciousness, right? One of the more interesting theories I've heard was actually from a long time ago now, but it was at the time called connectome. There's a book called Connectome about this, and the idea here is that the consciousness arises from the pathway, the connection between cells in the brain and neurons in the brain. It's not just all the whole pathways, all the connections. That's a theory. We don't know if it's true. We do know that there's an element of awareness that determines, like most of your definitions in this class or previous ones, is some kind of self-awareness or awareness above and beyond what an animal or tree might have with its basic function. So, your textbook divides it into two broad categories: waking consciousness, which thoughts, feelings, and sensations are clear, organized, and the person feels alert. It puts out, leaves out a good chunk of my morning after I actually wake up and get up, and people will say I was awake, but I'm not really clear and organized or alert until I've had my coffee and process twice in the morning, right? You're not so alert when you're sleeping, when you're sick. The textbook consciousness in contrast talks about altered states of consciousness. And these are states in which there's a shift in the quality or pattern of mental activity. Okay, as compared to waking consciousness. So your awareness is different. Your mental activity is different. Can you look at an example? Yes? Right, intoxication. Drug, any kind of drug working on our system. So we have a shift in our mental activity, right? Any other examples? Heartbreak? Special obsession. Yeah, that's definitely there's a good song called Jet Lag. I think it's called Jet Lag, but it compares being in love to having jet lag. And we're going to talk about jet lag a little later. You're nauseous, you don't feel good. Okay, great song. Yeah, so, and I asked for some examples. Sleep. Sleep is the one we're going to talk about today. Today we're going to talk about sleep. Sleep is the altered state of consciousness. Our brain waves are majorly different when we're sleeping. You know this important thing. As soon as they had ECG, they started saying, "Oh, let's figure out breathing. What's going on when we're asleep?" Because humans are curious. We wanted to know that, right? And altered states. What other examples? Now we're not going to be able to click on this guy either. So I look it up. I closed YouTube. I closed Google. Hang on.
America's most reliable network is going.
I hate the ad.
Verizon 5G Ultra Wideband now many worth it.
I hate this. I'm going to have to put ad block on this browser.
In the face of one of the country's leading medical schools, Dr. Edward Jessup, candidate for a Nobel Prize, is conducting the most dangerous experiments in the history of science. And the subject of the experiment is himself.
Ask him what kind of experience I can expect. Stephanie, go back to Stephanie. What happens during these blackout periods is you get the feeling of phenomenal acceleration, like you're being shot out over millions, billions of years. Time simply obliterates.
You got a shooting up with an untested drug that stacks up in the brain, whereas the nucleus of the cell, we don't call that dangerous.
No, we put the experiment off until we understand the war in order to minimize the risk.
Wait.
I'm really frightened. We could be screwed around with this whole genetic structure. How do we stop this?
We've got millions of years stored away in that computer that we call our minds. We have got trillions of dormant genes in us. Our whole evolutionary pathway. How can I tap into that?
Even the only science is beyond our own comprehension, and because I believe in, I want this thing stopped.
Hell is it? You okay?
If you love me, there is
Okay, So you guys remember when we talked about neuroenhancement in like chapter 2? Actually, you know, this is like part of what they do there is seek out neuroenhancement. So has anybody watched Stranger Things? You know how the whole thing about 11, she's in the sensory deprivation. So she can talk to people on the upside down, whatever it is. So putting people on sensory deprivation tanks was actually a thing. Happens at different universities, like, you know, places like that. They would put people and see what if they could, you know, get PSP or alter, increase altered state consciousness. They also did things like take LSD and Condote and psilocybin, shrooms. So now we know, for example, that there are actually therapeutic uses of LSD and psilocybin that can be useful. But for years and years, there's a big backlash to many things, including the 60s, but also academics basically experimenting with drugs to reach altered states, right? So seeking out altered states is a big thing. And there's a lot of fun stuff out there if you want to look in fiction. We, for now, are going to talk about sleep. On Wednesday, we're going to talk about drugs and other altered states of consciousness. But right now, we're going to focus on sleep. So how does sleep work? And here's some terms you know. Circadian rhythm, that is your cycle of bodily rhythms that occur over a 24-hour period. Circadian means about the end of the day. I read somewhere that humans, if they didn't have to depend on the earth and the turning of the earth, it would actually fall into a 25-hour rhythm, so a little bit longer than what we are forced to do today. But fortunately, we have a lot of our bodies that inform us about life going on and when it keeps you awake. Okay, so we also have part of our circadian rhythm is temperature. You start out in the morning, your temperature is pretty low, and it gets higher and higher throughout the day. It peaks, I don't know, that's I totally don't write that down. I can't remember. It peaks at some point, levels out, and then it drops again in the middle of the night. 3 or 4 hours of the dawn. So how does our bodies, you know, do this rhythm? The hypothalamus, we talked about the hypothalamus, the limbic system. It has a suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is our internal clock. It's sensitive to light. It keeps us adjusted to the day, so we don't fall into a 25-hour rhythm or whatever. And then we tell you about melatonin. It regulates body temperature. It mentioned that our body temperature change fluctuates in traditional patterns throughout the day. Melatonin makes us sleepy, right? Hypothalamus goes to pineal gland to secrete melatonin, you get sleepy. If you are having trouble sleeping, taking melatonin about half an hour before you want to sleep helps. Right? It's not a fix forever, but it does help with dealing with things like jet lag. Okay. If you get off your rhythm is not a good thing because sleep is really important. We'll talk about that in a minute, but we need to sleep so it facilitates memory consolidation, which is related to learning, right? Restores you physically and mentally. So necessity of sleep, learning. Let's have a look at this article here. Learn that tune while fast asleep. Stimulation during sleep can enhance skill learning. Now, this is a fairly old article, but still, the research grows out of exciting existing evidence that suggests that memories can be reactivated during sleep and storage of them can be strengthened. So we know that sleep is actually important to memory consolidation, storage of long-term memory. Okay. This one adds on and says that, you know, listening to maybe you should nap with the same melody playing. Apparently, listening to a tune while you sleep, it might help you learn it better, right? Northwestern study research participants learned how to play 2 artificially generated musical tunes with well-timed key presses. Why would they have artificially generated tunes instead of just real songs? The ideas? No, it's because somebody might know the songs and then they have an unsaid they'd already know it. So they needed tunes that people had to learn from zero. Okay? And then while the participants took a 90-minute nap, the researchers presented one of the tunes that had been practiced, but not the other. Okay? They were better, okay, at playing the tune that was played while they were asleep than the one that wasn't. Okay? Participants made fewer errors when pressing the keys to produce the melody that had been presented while they slept. That's put on while they slept, compared with the other one that they didn't hear while they were sleeping. Right? Has anybody heard of the book Brave New World? By Aldous Huxley. Okay, in it, so it's like a future, also it's really kind of depressing, doesn't really great worth reading. But it starts with they have, there's kind of people are destined to be like atheists or whatever, different, engineers or whatever, and they actually teach them their future skills that they need to know while they're thinking. Now, we have no evidence that you can, learn psychology while you're speaking or mental chemistry, but it is important for learning. What happens if you're not thinking enough? Compromised cognitive function. You think it's hard to learn, hard to think, hard to be creative. Okay. Your body automatically takes what's called microsleep. There's a little short period of a few seconds of sleep. It can happen while you're driving. This only happens to students, but in my later afternoon class, I got people falling asleep, but they're not microsleep, they're like natural sleep. Right? But the more you miss sleep, the more you can have microsleep. Sleep deprivation is lost sleep. Circadian rhythm, okay, if you not sleep properly, you're not going to have, a good cognitive function. What can cause it? Jet lag, when you move to a different time zone. Night shift. Okay, there are better ways and worse ways to do it. So phase 4, when you travel west, or when you shift, when you change shift, if you change it so it's later, it's easier for the body to take that. It's just extending your day. When you travel east, like traveling from here to Europe, it's much more difficult to become adjusted to local time. If you're not coming at the right time, all is really difficult. Same as that, if you're moving the step forward, it's more difficult. The older you get, the fewer hours of sleeping, and the less hard and REM, rapid eye movement, that's babies sleep a lot, and they sleep more portion of their sleep is dedicated to sleep. Okay, there's something important there. Why might babies sleep more? Why might they sleep more? We'll talk about sleeping in a minute, and you can kind of think about why this might be. As you get older, you sleep less and less. It's actually REM motivation. The 30-year-old is about 7.5 hours of non-REM sleep and 2 hours of REM sleep. That's 9.5 hours. I would love to get 9 hours of sleep today. I am a long time for myself. Theoretically, I am less. But I rarely get 8 hours of sleep, but I feel better if I do. Okay? Really important. So why do we sleep? Why do we sleep the way we do? So why do we sleep at night? Adaptive theory holds that we sleep depending on when we are most likely to sleep. Evolved in response to predators. It is safer to sleep when predators are more active. So think about humans. Okay, humans, they were safer up at night when the tigers were out, or the saber tooth tigers were out in the dark and you couldn't see them. They stayed up in the cages, right? We had one safer. Animals tend to be sleeping when predators are most active. Restorative theory, which then we know this is true, sleep is necessary for physical health. Replenishes chemicals and cellular damage, absolutely. We know that it's necessary for physical and mental health. know what's going on in our brain while we're sleeping. So we use these devices, and we talk about this in chapter 2. We have a link to the electrode, so that's what I'm going to help in the measure different brain waves and kind of what's going on. We're going to look at a graph that's going to make it more clear. But the basic ones are alpha waves, relaxation or light sleep. Theta waves, those are early stages of sleep, and delta waves, which are long, slow waves that are predominantly present when we are in a deep dream of sleep. Now, when we're dreaming, it's crazy, we've got a lot of going on in our head, so obviously our brain waves are not quite as they're active as if we were awake. The stages of sleep. First, we have what we call, well, this needs to be stage 4. So in the time I did psychology, it's been from 4 stages to 3 stages of R stage, which is REM. More rapid eye movement. Your eyes move rapidly under the eyelid. You do the dreaming. At the same time, you have muscle paralysis. Your brain tells your body not to move so you don't scratch around or do other things. And when you notice somebody sleeping and their eyes moving all over, some people, their eyes open, my kind of creepy. I've known one person slept with their eyes wide open. So if you're wake up during the sleep, you're more likely to remember that dream. And I know this because has really done a lot of work on sleeping. Like the brain people in the sleep lab, and it would have been really well researched. Now, REM sleep is also considered neurodoxical. People still doing that sleep even though it's not only yeah, right. Now, we know that breathing is necessary. And one of the things we know is that if we do not allow people to fall into REM sleep, they then need more on successive nights. Okay, so if you're not allowed to dream, then you're going to bring more to your life. This is interesting because we actually can't make up sleep very effectively, but I guess we can make up dreaming. So the most interesting is REM sleep. And then we have all the non-REM sleep, which is light sleep. After you fall into sleep, you have what you can have hypnagogic images. That's when you have like actually like really visual, super vivid images as to turn out to be, whatever is going on in the mind, right? Everybody experience that. And what that sometimes happens to me, but what frequently happens to me is what's called a hypnic stir. That's when you call it spaz out, right? The hand goes like this, little jerk. Did you guys experience that? Yeah, it's quite common. You have never done that? Wow. It's like a telltale, like people can always tell when I'm falling asleep, but that's how my boyfriend knows when I'm falling asleep during some morning sleep. That's how people like it. Okay. And if you notice, maybe you don't. I mean, not everybody does. Stage 2. Okay, you're not yet in deep sleep, but you're already pretty strong in sleep, right? A characteristic of stage 2 are sleep spindles. We're going to see that in a minute on a graph, so you can understand. This is a brief burst of brain activity or faster waves that only last a few seconds, right? And finally, in stage 3, you have those long, slow delta waves. Deep sleep, you consider that in deep sleep, when 50% of the waves that were reported by the CDC are delta waves. So they're long, slow, or fast. The body is at its lowest level of functioning. It's really low. People say, oh, you feel overnight. How is it? People do grow overnight. Here's a out. So at the top, you have alert, theta wave. Awake and alert, right? Then you're awake and more relaxed. You see those waves are kind of slowing down into alpha waves or more patterns, right? This stage one is the third one down there, theta wave. And here you can see what a big symbol looks like in stage two. You want to set it, you know, things kind of relax and you get more rapid pattern of movement. Only it's a little burst, only after a second or two. There's a sleep spindle. And then stage three, which is deep sleep, non-REM sleep. Delta wave, longer and slower. And finally, when you're sleeping, you've got crazy activity going on. That's why it's called paradoxical sleep. So, what about sleep disorders? We all have some, at least most people. There's always somebody who's had nightmares here? Who's had nightmares? There's always someone who doesn't. I'm like, well, those are bad things. We know what their nightmares are. Even if we haven't seen that down, oh shit, we know what nightmares. Okay. REM behavior disorder. This is when this is for muscle paralysis. Now, if that fails, then you still move. Okay, so you crash around, you get out, you act out nightmares. Some people who have this, they actually don't. They take tranquilizers or something so they can not crash around or walk off or hurt themselves or other people. A side effect of Parkinson's, like Parkinson's, is that mechanism of muscle paralysis fails and they tend to crash around more. Probably, Parkinson's is very much like how they have building, neurotransmitters going on. That's one of the side effects. Sleepwalking, somnambulism, fancy name for that. Walking around during sleep. So you do it more often than older. It makes you go away as you get older. A lot of children who sleepwalk will not, they at some point they just stop it, right? And night terror. This is really bad to watch because the person having a night terror screams, is really afraid, they scratch around, but then they wake up and have no memory of it. Not remembered, they usually don't wake up, it's better to leave alone and just be fine. It happens in younger children particularly, and then really not so much as you get older. So, and then we have homicidal somnambulism. In case you were wondering, this is when you kill someone. Yes, it's the same. In case you were wondering. It can be a defense against criminal charges. It relies on automatic complex behavior performed without conscious awareness or intent. So we are considered not morally responsible for things if we're not. Well, if we're not aware of right or wrong quality in the manner of doing it, and also if you're not aware of doing it with no intention. So how does this hold up? Let's now I know that. Here we go. Let's look at this. I should have just quit Noah. Let me just even have Explorer on it. So in case you thought it wasn't a thing, 7 criminal cases that invoked the sleepwalking defense. In 1846, Albert Terrell was acquitted in the murder of a prostitute. He slit the woman's throat and almost decapitated her and set fire to the brothel, then fled to New Orleans. His lawyer said that Terrell was a chronic sleepwalker and permitted the crime while asleep. Okay, they found him not guilty. This is probably the first legal case in the U.S. when someone got off on the sleepwalking defense. Just in case. Now, I would be very skeptical when someone just said, hey, I was sleepwalking, okay, but look a few more. Spain versus Commonwealth, classic case in the 1870s. A man fell asleep in the lobby of a Kentucky hotel. When a porter shook him to try to rouse him, the man drew a gun and shot the porter 3 times. While the porter held him to the floor, the man repeatedly yelled, "Hoo-woo!" He was found guilty of manslaughter, but the conviction was reversed. because he actually had a lifelong history of sleepwalking and he'd been sleep deprived before the attack. Another reason to get enough sleep, because you might wake up and say, who we and kill the porter, right? One more, this one is really kind of egregious. Kenneth Parks in Canada was acquitted in the 1987 murder of his mother-in-law while using the sleepwalking defense on the night of the death. He got up from bed and drove 14 miles to his in-laws' house. He was said to be close to them, strangled his father-in-law until the man passed out, bludgeoned his mother-in-law with a tire iron and stabbed them both with a kitchen knife. He killed her. Appeared oblivious. The obliviousness of pain, along with other factors, including a strong family history of parasomnias, led experts to testify that he had been sleepwalking, not conscious, not responsible, not guilty. All right, just in case you were wondering, it is a thing. Homicidal somnambulism. More sleep disorders, insomnia. So insomnia is not just about not being able to get sleep. It also is about not staying asleep or getting good quality of sleep. Okay? Most of us at some point will suffer from insomnia. Okay, so you have to go somewhere in the morning. You're worried about the next day. Is anybody here not been had insomnia ever? We've all never ever had insomnia. Yeah, so everybody got it. And a lot of things cause that most people it's not a problem. You know that that's a problem. You know the cause is the food that's going to go away, not the food. If you do have more, there's a lot of things that cause insomnia. Alcohol. Alcohol makes you fall asleep really well. At the moment, usually, but then about 5 hours after your last drink, you wake up. That's your body processing the food. Okay, sleep apnea. Breathing starts to you will have to do more fun to stay out and you can have sleep with this thing called the positive low pressure device, helps you sleep support. Sleep apnea can support. It's really important to deal with it if you have it, because again, you are compromising your cognitive function by not sleeping. Narcolepsy is when you just fall asleep during the day and into REM sleep, not kind of dozing off and seeing those weird, vivid images, but when you actually fall into deep state. Some people also suffer cataplexy. Not only do you fall asleep, you collapse. Then they have no muscle tone and you fall over or fall into the ground. So here's a nice little table and everything. Somnambulism, not restless leg syndrome. Okay, I've never experienced that. I can't see it. You feel like things are running up the leg. Yeah, I feel like things I've never things not so sure I want to suffer. Yeah. That is just not thinking about, right? Being pregnant is one thing. Nocturnal leg cramps. That's when you suddenly wake up with a twisted pain in your back. Anybody have that happen to them? Yeah. Fortunately, it almost never happens. But what it does is terrible. It gives you more health. But every time I've had one, I would immediately talk to the calcium and stuff, right? Now, hypersomnia is related because calcium electrolyte imbalance is part of it. Hypersomnia, when you are very during the daytime, okay? Depression, a lot of things can cause you to sleep a lot during the day. Sometimes not sleeping properly, etc. Circadian rhythm disorders, jet lag, etc. And you're the bedwetting, almost everybody is part of it. Young. It's not a disorder, it's a child like bed. It's persistent, can't go away. Often tied to actually like okay. Why do we dream? why these crazy images? One idea, the activation synthesis hypothesis, is pretty old information now, neurobiological. The idea is that your brain is just crazy firing and creating dreams. Okay, so what it's just making whatever happens during the day or anytime you go to this cortical cells fires wider. Now we don't have the Y for that, but there you go. So here's an image of it. The idea is that you are on what's called the thalamus. We talk about thalamus as a relay system, right? Okay, so right here, the pons kind of sends random signals go through the thalamus into the cortex, and that's of course where for thinking, moving, all that thing stuff happens. Strength, and then you try to put together in a really mediated way. But you know, it's not completely random because it's the same. One tends to be, you know, the night before an exam, you're much more likely to be getting to school and being negative or having not studied or being tested out. Find out more, right? So that's totally random because the anxiety dreams happen more when something scary is about to happen, right? Okay, so then we have a little later, Hobson, like 299, expanded and much more complex idea, activation information mode model. And basically it explains awareness in three dimensions. Activation energy, that's just how active the brain is. I'm just talking about how active the brain is. The input, so either external, so right now we have external input, right, the world around us. Internal is your brain. So when you're asleep, all the input into your awareness is coming, or your state of consciousness is coming from inside. Are you experiencing the brain cells are inside? And then low is the low of sleeping. Waking, your neurotransmitters are more predominant in the brain. This is a better quality. And so let's look at a little image of this. This is just an explanation of what's going on. I'm not sure how. Very low, long solar high, more active is the brain internal. Okay, that has all the information. External, what's going on around you. So we have REM, the rapid activity. All the input is internal, so as the flow, you're sleeping, right? And it's all in this type of awake is you have external input, high activity. AIM activation. Okay. So why do we do this? All those we still have not answered the why. So according to Freud, we talked about Freud, dreams are wish fulfillment or the expression of repressed emotions. So for Freud, it was always about psychological issues arising from childhood conflict. For Freud, dreams have two things: the manifest content, which is the dream itself. So what goes on in dreams? So people, when you have a psychotherapist or somebody might ask you, okay, so actually, the dream diary. That description of the dream, that's the manifest content. The latent content is supposedly the true hidden meaning of the dream that your therapist, your psychotherapist helps you to like figure out, right? Yeah, very solid. One time, so when I was getting a divorce, I saw a therapist because that's what you do, even feel and all that. And I was a psychotherapist. She's really nice. When she wanted me to do the lying on the sofa, I'm like, I'm not going to do that. But she was great. She helped me do it. But at one point, she was asking about my dreams. She told me, you know, write down your dreams. And I remember one day I go in, I'm like, yeah, So, you have a dream for me? And I'm like, yeah, I have a dream for you. Well, she started. So I said, well, my dream, I'm a purple dragon. And I'm flying back and forth with messages between like royalty of kings and queens of different countries. So the whole dream is all about me picking up a message as a purple dragon, flying into somebody else. That's the manifest concept. So my therapist looks at me and tells me to think of it. Like, well, you know, I think what's going on here is you have like, you really experience a desire, you know, like an unconscious or subconscious desire to take the power. Just, you know, you're being a message, everything's complete. And I just looked at her and I'm like, no. All that's happening here is that I've been playing Spyro obsessively for the past couple of weeks. You guys know Spyro? Yeah, purple dragon flying back and forth. The dreams often are just reflecting what's going on around and around content. According to my therapist, the latest content was, yeah, my need needs to be close to power because of the manifest content and using a purple dragon. I always said, well, why, you know, I really like to think of the bandages because I really like that bandages then, but I never did. Anybody ever dream that they're in a video game? It's very common because frequently that's when we play right before sleep, when we're all done with the stuff of the day. At least that's when I would. Anyway, so Tori wrote a book, Interpretation Dreams. I actually read it and I was so interested in it. Interpreting dreams has been a big thing in many cultures, Native American culture. A lot of people are really interested in what we dream and what they might mean. Some people think they have prophetic dreams. Has anybody felt like they had a dream that was like prophetic? Yeah, me too. Then I've never dreamed about the numbers of the lottery, but I wish. There's that feeling. So if you're interested, there's two ways. Just remember, Daniel is very popular. There are like classic interpretations of certain, you know, things that happen in dreams. Before you get really involved in my story about Spyro. So it could just be that you are playing a video game too often or watch the movie. I frequently dream when I fall asleep watching a movie. I'll then have that thing go on in my head. Anybody else have that happen? Yeah, it does. Okay. What do people dream about? Usually events that are happening in everyday life. Most in the color. Anybody dream of like what? I have like two dreams in my entire life. And it does happen, it's more rare. And dreaming you're flying. Who's dreams that they're flying? A couple people right anything special about your flying dreams? Yeah, me too. And sometimes my flying power like kind of goes off. I'm going places to places around with like half of this kind of stuff. So when I dream, one of the ways I fly in dreams is I like put my I fly like straight up like this. Sometimes my ears are like this, but I have repeatedly since childhood flown that way. And then I get tired, so I can't put my legs on. And you're right, it's in your dreams. Anybody else have dreams when they're flying, but they're not flying, trying to escape murderers or something? They're the what? A hero. So you take it before the time? I would get so cool to fly around. Like some of my dreams, I do fly not something my legs, but it's like different things. Never like fly around with a hero. I never knew what my dreams. I'm always being pushed around by things. Go ahead. Okay, somebody who has Google available, say Google is blind people things. Anybody want to Google that? I don't know. I think they have, I read once what they had it like Do blind people dream? Anybody have an answer? You do? Uh-huh. So absolutely, yes, I've heard that too, that they definitely dream with sound and smell and everything. And she was, interested in 11. A lot of people are totally blind, you know. Yeah. Maybe if I was to close your eyes and you kind of have like an impression of bread or an impression, that's the answer. That's pretty interesting, but songs, I mean, I've dreamt I've at a concert, and you can do that. Most of a concert doesn't require you to actually make the concert. I think you will, right? So I just got that. But yeah, okay. So there are gender differences in dreaming. Girls and women report dreaming. Remember people asking me what do you dream about? Okay. The brain is called here too. Girls and women report dreaming about people they know. Personal experience concerns, issues related to them. I never dreamed about this. Except for the things you make it from going to school, which I used to bring all the time. Boys and men dream about outdoor unfamiliar activities may involve what the school part of sexual. My question is, maybe women dream that, but don't admit dreaming about sexual things or sexual things with a kind of partner. That's not really surprising. In general, frustration, things that are coming up, at least I do. But anyway, I think this is probably the end. Oops. Yeah, nope, we have lucid dreaming. So lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is when you know that you're dreaming. How many people have lucid dreaming? So people actually train to do this. I also had lucid dreaming since I was a child. But apparently they're pretty rare. And you can do those courses that can teach you what you're doing. Some people, when you have, there's levels of it, some people where you're doing that's like the first level. I've had that ever since I was in college. That's a nightmare because they will be repetitive. So I'm certainly times I'm in your research and says, hey, I'm doing it. And you said, I can wake myself up. Most people who can teach you doing can also wake themselves up. Some people who are lucid dreamers can control their dreams. So you guys control their dreams at school. Some people can. I can certain extent, but not perfectly. And then I just like wake up right when I'm getting to an interesting part, and then I'll be like spinning most before I fall back into that dream. I do have repetitive dreams. Anybody have repetitive like serial dreams? Yeah. I don't know if there's been a lot of research in this, but I always ask that question. There's always several people who happen. Sometimes they start back at the beginning for me, and sometimes they start somewhere in the middle. They don't unfortunately always pick up where they're going off. That's what happens to remember. Most of our races don't remember. So who knows? This is getting a lot of things for certainly. Sleep paralysis, you mean sleep paralysis is when you wake up? No, it's not. You wake up, so sleep paralysis is when you wake up before your muscle paralysis is ended, and so you can't move. And so your eyes open, but the rest of your body can't move. It's often associated with what's called something other images. And when you're awake and you can't move, you then see it like that. I can make you explain it that. That's the thing that appears in front of you. I okay, so you had a lucid dream about sleep paralysis, it sounds like. That sounds like really good. So there's actually, and I can't remember, it's hypnagogic or hypno something with our images. So sleep paralysis, when you wake up and your brain hasn't released your muscles yet, which is, your muscles are, you have muscle cells while you dream. Okay, and you wake up and then people often experience someone like a figure hovering in front of them. Now, a lot of stuff like that, and hear images. But yeah, it is a thing people still do that. And your textbook might have the exact term. What it, I'm forgetting the name of that. But that's really interesting kind of creepy. Nightmares can be very creepy. Intro. Okay, so I'm thinking this is Deb. Okay, so we're gonna stop here. Interesting, I love this chapter because it's kind of weird. We're gonna actually talk about hypnosis on Wednesday and drugs. Because other altered consciousness are drugs. You can also get an altered state through meditation. Flow. You guys know what flow is? Flow is when you are exercising, you're doing anything that's hard enough that you lose all sense of everything except the present moment. But so it has to be hard enough to get there, but not too hard, otherwise you won't get there. So that's another old state. Anyway, thank you so much, and I will see you Wednesday.